If you're a sports fan, make sure you go check out SportsCastr for all of your sports needs. Whether you're a football fan, basketball fan, or baseball fan, this app is the perfect way to get news for your team and is an app I personally use myself in case any of you guys want to check out my pregame, halftime, or postgame streams. I'll leave a link in the description below. What is up, Pats Nation? It's Patriots Global back here with another video, and in this one, we're going to talk a little bit more about trades. More specifically, a few trades that the Patriots could potentially make ahead of the October 29th trade deadline. Like always, the New England Patriots are being very active in trade rumors and trade scenarios right before the trade deadline is taking place. The same thing happened last year. A lot of rumors were going around about a lot of different guys. For example, Golden Tate, Demaryius Thomas, even rumors about the Patriots trading for Jamie Collins. Of course, by the end of the trade deadline, the Patriots were not able to make any trades, though. It is funny, though, how a year later, the Patriots are still in the same scenario as they previously were, still looking to add offensively, still looking to add pass catchers. Now, if you are subscribed to me, if you are familiar with my channel, which if you are not, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, as things are going to get crazy going forward. And you're definitely not going to want to miss out. But I talked about a few different guys that the Patriots could trade for, but more specifically, guys that they're already rumored to have interest in. This considers guys like Stephon Diggs from the Vikings, Emmanuel Sanders from the Broncos, AJ Green and Tyler Eifert from the Bengals. So if you guys would like to go ahead and watch those videos, make sure you guys go check out my channel, as those are their own separate videos and very in-depth. Now, the first guy on this list is a guy that makes a lot of sense and is probably one of the more likely options for the Patriots, really out of all the guys we've talked about in general involving a trade with the Patriots. Falcons wide receiver Mohamed Sanu may not be as flashy as all of these other players, but he is definitely a very talented guy who would be able to make an impact here with the Patriots. Something that I do like here is that he has 2 years left on his contract, so he would not just be a one-year rental for the Patriots before he would hit free agency. So if the Patriots did make the trade, they'd be able to have him for the rest of this season and the following season also. The thing that makes this trade likely and more likely that the Falcons would actually trade Sanu is the fact that, let's be honest, the Falcons are having a very bad season, both offensively, but more specifically defensively, and Mohamed Sanu is not getting much time in that offense. They are really using these bigger wide receivers within the Falcons offense, and that being, of course, Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, so Mohamed Sanu is not much of a factor in that offensive scheme, so it would make a lot of sense that they would try to deal him, especially as their season is not really going anywhere. He would without a doubt be a very good complementary piece here to the Patriots, would take a little bit of that stress off of, let's say, someone like Julian Edelman, who, of course, is the Patriots' very much to-go slot receiver, plays a lot in the middle of the field, and that's exactly what Sanu does well also. The Patriots already have guys like Josh Gordon, who are really guys who mostly play on the outside of things, and they're going to be getting back wide receiver N'Keal Harry, who will also be playing on the outside. So you have two top-tier guys who you will have on the outskirts of the sidelines. So adding a guy like Sanu and helping Julian Edelman out a little bit in the middle of the field could prove to be a very good move by the Patriots. Now, like I did mention earlier, he is not one of the most flashy players, okay? He isn't someone like a Stephon Diggs or, an AJ Green or anything like that. So he's not necessarily someone you would plug in and right away becomes this super flashy, problematic issue for other defenses. Of course, the other issue being that if the Patriots did make a trade for him, they would have to pay him about $12.5 million over the next 2 years on his contract. Sanu is also getting up there in age. He's currently 30 years old, but at the same time, that has never stopped Bill Belichick. In fact, Bill Belichick actually usually loves guys who are older because he loves these veterans. He loves guys who have been in the NFL for a long time and know what they're doing. Mohamed Sanu, again, being 30 years old, has had a lot of experience here in the NFL, both regular season, both Super Bowl and playoff. He would also give Tom Brady a pretty big receiver through the middle of the field. I wouldn't be surprised to see him playing on the outskirts of the sidelines here now and then, but again, he mostly worked within the middle of the field playing in the slot, but he's 6'2", 210 pounds, so obviously a bigger guy, especially compared to what the Patriots currently have, and it definitely would not hurt to give Tom Brady a bigger receiver. For this season, Mohamed Sanu has a base salary of around $6 million, and then in his final year, which would be next year, 2020, he would take up about $6.5 million before hitting free agency in the 2021 season. Now, because he is signed under contract for 2 years, the Patriots could always do a scenario where they kind of just rent out Mohamed Sanu. Basically, they trade for him, they grab him. If things are not working out by the end of the season, then they just trade him to another team. So far this season, he has played a total of 6 games and has hauled in 32 receptions on 40 targets for 310 yards and a touchdown. Sanu has never actually put up a 1,000-yard season, unlike a lot of the other guys that we've talked about since he has joined the league in 2012, but he has put up a lot of respectable numbers, such as 790 yards, 653 yards, 838, 703 yards, so he's always been a guy that puts up pretty good numbers, although he's never actually eclipsed 1,000. Now, the next guy on this list is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end O.J. Howard. It makes a lot of sense that the New England Patriots are looking more so towards wide receivers, and we're hearing a lot more wide receiver names than tight ends regarding the New England Patriots and a possible trade, because there is just a lot more wide receivers that are on the open market when it comes to trade, rather than, let's say, tight ends and offensive linemen. But as of late, O.J. Howard has been a name that has really been sparked in trade rumors, especially related back to the New England Patriots. Now, this guy has been related back to a few other teams, but of course, more notably, the New England Patriots. Now, the Buccaneers did say that they aren't looking to trade him, but as I mentioned earlier, you have to take that with a grain of salt. And looking at how they're using him, looking at his production, looking at how much longer he has on his contract, it would make a lot of sense for the Bucs to trade him. He finished the 2018 season with 34 catches for 565 yards and 5 touchdowns, all in just 10 games. He's a 3-year veteran tight end, so he doesn't have a crazy amount of experience, but does still have a little bit of experience under his belt. And like I mentioned, in the Tampa Bay Bucs offense has really just become a non-factor, and he would be just a great fit for the Patriots. And really, this is just the perfect scenario here for Bill Belichick, and it would just make so much sense for the trade to go through. He isn't a guy that I think the New England Patriots would have to give up an arm and a leg for, okay? Not a first round, not a second round. A third round, even then, might be pushing it. So really, you're not having to give up a lot when it comes to, draft capital and sorts of that. Not to mention the fact that the New England Patriots are seriously stacked with draft picks for the future, so it's not like that would be a too severe situation here for the Patriots. Now, it would also be a really good scenario here for the Pats is because he's on his rookie contract, okay? The Patriots love to trade for guys that are on their rookie contracts because they're getting them for a very low price at a very good talent, okay? Let's keep in mind he was a former first-round pick. And then, of course, the most obvious one here being the fact that the New England Patriots have a really big need here for tight end, okay? They recently re-signed Ben Watson, which was a very good move here by the Patriots. Currently, he's definitely set to be the Patriots' number 1 tight end at this time. Then you have a guy like Ryan Izzo, who has probably been the best tight end for the Patriots so far, but he still has not done, anything too special, anything too crazy in the Patriots system that should make anyone go too bizarre. Has done some good stuff, but nothing too crazy, but is also dealing with a concussion right now, so he's a little bit banged up. You have Matt LaCosse, who, ever since joining the Patriots, has been banged up and really been a non-factor. He could be a candidate for the Patriots to go on the injured reserve. And then, of course, you have Eric Tomlinson, a guy who the Patriots just recently signed. Kind of a no-name type of signing. Haven't really seen him in the organization, not played in a game or a snap with the Patriots yet. So, of course, he's a guy to watch, but even then, he's more of a blocker. So, as you can see, the New England Patriots seriously need some help in this tight end situation. They need help not just in the passing game, but also a guy to set the edge to help the running game. Something that I'm a big fan of about O.J. Howard is his size, okay? To me, when it comes to a tight end, having size is very important. It's a pretty big aspect that can seriously change the game. And OJ Howard has a lot to like in the build. He's a 6'6" tight end and also sits at 242 pounds. So he would definitely bring that aspect of Rob Gronkowski that the Patriots have not had since Rob Gronkowski. A guy that the Patriots could easily place on the edge in blocking scenarios, have him just go up through the middle of the field, or even if they want to now and then play him on the outside skirts of the field like they've done with Rob Gronkowski, they're also able to do that. Bill Belichick, but more specifically Tom Brady, loves throwing to his tight ends. Having a good tight end for Tom Brady really changes up the entire scenario offensively. So far this season, he has appeared in every game and has been targeted 18 times, hauling in 13 receptions for 176 yards, averaging 13.5 yards per reception with 0 touchdowns. We already talked about his 2018 campaign, and then in 2017, which was his rookie year, he played in 14 games in which he had 6 touchdowns, and then also was targeted 39 times, hauling in 26 receptions for 432 yards, so has always put up pretty respectable numbers. He's only expected to make a base salary in the 2019 season of about 1.4, and then next season, he would be making just 1.9, and for his caliber, the upside to a guy like OJ Howard, especially in the New England Patriots system, for that kind of money would be just a complete steal. Of course, the other part that I love about this deal is the fact that the New England Patriots would not just get him for this season. It wouldn't be a rent. They would also get him next season, which means an entire offseason of minicamp, OTAs, training camp, all that good stuff, in which they could evaluate him further to see if he's a guy that they would want to sign more so for the future. OJ Howard is definitely the number one tight end that I would want the Patriots to trade for, especially over guys like Tyler Eifert. Now, next up is going to be another wide receiver, as I'm sure you probably could have guessed, and this time it's going to be the Miami Dolphins wide receiver in DeVante Parker. Now, a quick disclaimer about this one is that the Miami Dolphins are not actively shopping DeVante Parker. There have been no rumors that have actually come out saying, we're actually looking to ship off DeVante Parker. But look, it's the Miami Dolphins. Most of the guys on that team, you wouldn't have thought that they would have traded, but yet they still did. They're in serious rebuild mode at this point. I mean, you heard earlier that they were trying to trade running back Kenyon Drake. Now they're talking about giving him an extension. Now they're also saying, even despite looking to give him an extension, if a team was to give them good value for him, they would still trade him. So really, when looking at the Miami Dolphins, any guy is up for grabs in the trade market, especially at the end of the trade deadline. It makes a lot of sense. And of course, the Patriots having chemistry, of course, with the Miami Dolphins head coach being Brian Flores. Parker is another guy that the Patriots definitely will not have to give up an arm and a leg for. He was originally drafted in the first round in the 2015 draft by the Miami Dolphins. And he's put up pretty good numbers, but nothing too crazy. You know, he's not an all-pro wide receiver, isn't putting up 1,000 yards, which I'll get to in a little bit. But he sits at 6'3", 209 pounds, so he's another guy that brings really good build to the wide receiver group, really going back to earlier in the offseason when the Patriots were drafting and bringing in free agents and making trades, and they were visibly trying to add height to their wide receivers and their tight ends, really just their pass catchers in general. They were trying to add height. But looking at the start of the season, looking at our current time on what the Patriots have, that aspect really has been dialed down. And of course, giving Tom Brady an athletic, big, tall receiver is going to be very hard because it is a lot harder to cover taller and more bulky wide receivers than it is to cover, let's say, a 5'9", 5'10" wide receiver. Now, so far this season, DeVante Parker has appeared in 5 games in which he was targeted 28 times for 13 receptions for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. Something really important to make sure you remember about this season is that the quarterback situation is really changing in Miami. Now, really the past few years in Miami, their quarterback situation has never been good. It's constantly changing. It's constantly going around. So not much guys are going to find success there. So for a guy like DeVante Parker, he's never really been utilized or used the right way because of the quarterback play, but more specifically also the coaching. His best season came in 2017, where he played in 13 games and was targeted 96 times, hauling in 57 receptions for 670 yards, averaging 11.8 yards per reception with 1 touchdown and a long reception of 34 yards. Or I'm sorry, that was actually his second best season. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. His best season came the year prior to that. That was in 2016, where he appeared in 15 games and was targeted 87 times, hauling in 56 receptions for 744 yards, averaging 13.3 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns with a long reception of 56 yards. Now, the other years in the NFL, he's had 494 yards, which was his rookie season, and then in 2018, which was last year, he had 309. Now, when looking at DeVante Parker's contract, this is something that also makes a lot of sense. Let's remind ourselves that the Patriots do not have a lot of money in the cap. Usually around this time, they have about 5 to 10 mil. They're sitting around the 3 million range, and a big part of that is because of the whole AB situation. A lot of guys that you're hearing names about, for example, Stephon Diggs, AJ Green, Emmanuel Sanders, all these guys have really, really high cap space that the Patriots would have to take on. But guys like DeVante Parker and the other guys I've talked about in this video, the Patriots would be able to take on low salaries and cap space that they would easily be able to maneuver in. This season, he is set to make about 3.5 mil in a base salary, and next season, he's set to make about 4.4, so pretty easy here for the Patriots to be able to maneuver in, and he is set to become a unrestricted free agent in 2021, so the Patriots would have him for the rest of this season and next. And the last guy on this list is going to be a guy I made an entire video about, so I'm definitely not going in depth like I did with all these other guys. If you want to know about Emmanuel Sanders, go ahead and check the video out that I already made about him. But obviously, the last guy here is going to be wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders from the Broncos. Now, a lot of teams have called about him. The Broncos were looking for a trade. Then they came out and said, actually, no, we're not looking for a trade. We're shutting all that down. The Patriots actually called about Emmanuel Sanders, and the Broncos said, again, we're not looking to trade him. But after the Broncos' pretty brutal loss this past week, I wouldn't be surprised if Emmanuel Sanders gets put on the trade block now. The Broncos season is not going anywhere, so at this point, just try to rebuild for the next season. Emmanuel Sanders was a guy that Bill Belichick is very familiar with. He actually tried to sign Emmanuel Sanders back when he was a free agent after his time with the Steelers, but they were beaten there by the Denver Broncos. Sanders is getting old, but he is a very, very, very smart wide receiver, which is something that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are really going to like. He's super versatile, super dynamic, and has a lot of skills despite being in his 30s. The great thing about him being so versatile is that he's going to be able to run really every play that the New England Patriots have in their offensive scheme book. So he's not a guy that is only able to be out here in a certain number of packages. You might see it at first if they were to make the trade, but with him being so dynamic and versatile and being able to run so many different types of crisp routes, he is a guy that you'll easily see out there on the field time after time. Something to monitor, though, with Emmanuel Sanders is that a lot of other teams were calling the Broncos about a potential trade, so the Patriots definitely would have some competition there. Easily could get outbid. The other thing about him is that he would have to take on a lot of cap in order to be with the Patriots. The Patriots also would not even get Emmanuel Sanders for an entire season. This is his last year under contract before becoming an unrestricted free agent in 2020. So the Patriots would only get him for a few games of the regular season, playoffs, and potential Super Bowl run. And he's set to make a base salary of $10.2 million this year. So he is a guy that relates back to the Patriots and makes a lot of sense, but you're also looking at having to give up some draft capital and some fairly good draft capital for a guy that you're getting for a few games and having to take on about 10.2 mil of a cap. Really, the big reason that he's on here is because Bill Belichick's love for him and because of how much of a fit he would be in our scheme. But that is going to be it for today's video. What are your guys' thoughts on these guys that I have the Patriots having, to take a look at, guys that they should take a look at? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys would like to listen to my other videos that I talked about involving trade rumors, this consists of Stephon Diggs, AJ Green, and Tyler Eifert, and Emmanuel Sanders. Go check out my channel. Those videos are all already made. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already, and other than that, I will catch you guys in another video.